Hey guys, it's time to talk NHL 22 esports. I'm Cameron Halbert here to introduce the first 6v6 NHL 22 Next Gen event, starting with the CBJ Gaming Kroger Next Gen Open. It'll be a 6-week regular season running on back-to-back nights starting November 10th. The top 32 teams will make the playoffs, with the winner taking home $2,000, runner-up scoring $500. Now to break down the new teams and talk about some of the familiar faces in the event, I've got my man Grizz to help me out.
Hey guys, my name is GrizGoal. I will be back doing color commentary for the CBJ Gaming event, as I've done with CBJ Gaming for their previous events on PlayStation. And Sleeves is going to bring you guys through some of the new teams to the CBJ Gaming event. And Sleeves, walk me through it.
All right, well, there are quite a few new teams for the CBJ Gaming Next Gen Kroger Open, TR5, Splice, Royal. But let's talk about Scary Hours, as that has some familiar faces on it.
Yeah, so Scary Hours is going to be a complete rebrand of the Vertigo team, Vertigo being a prolific Xbox team, and they did win the first CBJ Gaming event on Xbox in 2020. Of course, this roster is a little bit different from that roster that won that championship. This one, it's basically just Scary Joey. Scary Joey's the lone survivor from that roster. They're bringing in some heavy hitters, and you want to bring us through the rest of that roster.
Absolutely. Some of the best names in sixes. We've got Arctic Blur with Scary Joey, who you mentioned, and Sitful, one of the most known players in the NHL community. We've got Augie and K-Cut, the former BBB defense pairing, as well as Bar Down Beauty in net. So this is a star-studded lineup. I'm excited to see how they do in their first CBJ Gaming event. I think when we're talking about clubs, though, we need to talk about a team that's a little bit more closer to home, and that's 614 Hockey, featuring some of the best guys around the Columbus area. Walk us through that lineup real quick.
Yeah, so 614 Hockey will be fielding a lineup different than the lineup we saw them use in the last CBJ Gaming event on PlayStation. This time bringing a different group of Columbus natives to the forefront. And we'll start with Top Shelf Cookie. Top Shelf Cookie, of course, winning the GWC championship in 2019. He'll certainly be bringing some heat to this lineup. At goalie, we will see Welsh X16, another Columbus native. And at left defense, we'll see Jan X13, who also is from Columbus. Now, this roster does have a couple non-Columbus residents, and we'll start with Greggy X74, can be used in that utility role, goalie, defense forward. Wherever they need him, he'll slot in at. Chell Snipes is coming in more of a goalie, but he'll be a nice addition to this roster if Welsh can't make a game. And we also have CJ142, who can slot in at forward or defense, and he's from Philadelphia. Now, that's not all, as we do have Nasher joining the team as well. Yes, Nasher, one of the biggest names in the Chell community, will be slotting in some games at right wing. What do you think, Sleeves?
My man Nasher, always good to bring the spotlight to NHL esports. I'm happy to see that he's back competing. It's always a blast to watch him play in these events. So, Grizz, this event is going to feature the best 6v6 clubs in North America. Let's break down some of the bigger ones, starting with probably one of the biggest surprises in NHL 21, as they came out of nowhere at the start of the year and absolutely dominated by the end of it. Let's talk about Prodigy.
Yeah, Prodigy, of course, having that first top 32 loss after making playoffs, like kind of a hut team that joined the sixes and found their groove as NHL 21 went on. While they did start off with a top 32 finish, getting eliminated in the first round of one of the first events of NHL 21, they worked their way up the ladder and found a way to win a championship in these CBJ Gaming events. And I'm just going to start with the roster here that Prodigy's bringing to the table. And they're bringing at left wing Polgs, at center Boosh 26, who was added for the KCC3 event on Xbox. At right wing, Canadians 27. At left defense, Geimer. At right defense, Desi 19. And in net, Rampage 79.
It was awesome to watch this team come together, as, like you mentioned earlier, they were extremely good 1v1 players, formed a team, and just started dominating as the year went along in NHL 21. It's going to be exciting to see how they do in this first next-gen event. How about one of the most tenured teams in North American 6v6, Composure, as one of the biggest stalwarts on defense on the planet, is no longer on the Composure roster. Walk us through that.
Yeah, of course, you were talking about Odie leaving Composure before the last event on NHL 21, and they have a couple of good replacements. I'll run through the roster. At left wing, they're bringing in McLovin. At center, Mr. Hitat. At right wing, Tendy. At left defense, Official Mark. And at right defense, Replacing Odie will be Mateer. In net, they're bringing back the Wall. And something interesting to note for the utils that they're bringing on, two of the better well-known left wings in both Stiffmeister and Boily. Boily, an up-and-coming player, and adding firepower on utility and adding Mateer to replace that hole that Odie leaves.
That's definitely going to be one of the biggest storylines to watch. Composure post Odie. Now let's talk about where Odie went, because he didn't just retire. He is still back and better than ever on Olympia, probably the most dominant 6v6 team on the planet over the last year, winning or almost winning every single event they competed in. Let's talk about Olympia.
Yeah, so Olympia, almost a clean sweep of ESHL events on NHL 21, bringing home 8 first place finishes in ESHL events to go along with 2 second place finishes as well. And they're bringing in a little bit of a different roster because Odie now will be filling in for Rux. Rux taking a couple events off, kind of taking the back seat here. And just looking at this roster, some of the best players in the world, with Gabsy at left wing, McFlurry at center, Gilly at right wing, Grim at left defense, Odie at right defense, and in net Reigns.
Just an absolutely stacked roster. And I think when we look back in a few years, looking back at how Olympia did in NHL 21, it might have been the greatest performance that we'll ever see from a 6v6 team.
Yeah, absolutely. And one interesting thing to note is Rux had a lot of chemistry with Gilly, and part of what made Olympia was how fast they move the puck. So now bringing in Odie's going to slow things down and control the puck a lot. So this team will have to adapt to a new playstyle. That'll certainly be interesting to watch.
That's going to be one of the bigger storylines to watch, no doubt. But let's talk about Entourage, one of the best teams from NHL 20, as they dominated for quite some time without any roster changes. One of the few teams that did not really change anyone on their roster. That all changed halfway through NHL 21 after mixing some parts on their team. They're looking to get back to that top-tier form. Walk us through their lineup going into this event.
Yeah, so with Entourage, one of the interesting things to note is they had 4 top 4 finishes and 1 first place finish in ESHL in 2021. And that was largely done with a different roster than we were used to seeing when they won the first Caps Gaming event. Now, something interesting to note, they are back with their original lineup, and that includes Hendry at left wing, Jay Claus at center, Fisher at right wing, George under the gamertag NYR95 at left defense, Regs84 at right defense, and in net, 29. Something else to note, they also added Vane, who is largely considered one of the best, if not the best goaltender in 6v6. So something interesting to note, is there going to be a goaltender battle between Shekel and Vane?
Now, just because they are labeled Entourage, I think we need to discuss their former team that was taking part in the CBJ gaming events, because they dominated NHL 21 in this event. Talk me through the Icebreakers and their kind of, reforming in Entourage.
Yeah, so the Icebreakers was a super team on PSN between probably the 2 best NHL 21 teams in Entourage and Olympia. It was mainly composed of Entourage, bringing in J Claus, Fisher, Regs, and Shekel in net, and bringing over the left side from Olympia in Gabsy and Grim. This lineup was a lineup that just destroyed everything that came in their path on the CBJ gaming events on PSN. And you look at their finishes, I mean, it's just all she wrote. Second event, they defeated the Nationals. The third event, they defeated Prodigy 3-0. The fourth event, they also went to the championship and finally lost. So they did go back-to-back in championships before losing, and then got back on the winning grind in Season 5 of the CBJ gaming events. So certainly just dominance out of that PlayStation team. And of course, those guys going back to their old teams for the Xbox event.
No, absolutely. They ran through the CBJ gaming events last year, and it'll be interesting to see now, with everyone going back to kind of their home team, how they perform in this event. I think one of the coolest accolades from the CBJ gaming events is the fact that Gabsy and Grim have literally made every single finals that a CBJ gaming event has had. The first one dating back to NHL 20, and then every single event in NHL 21. Just a crazy run, and we'll see if they can keep their streak up now going into this one. All right, guys, so make sure you tune in weekly to watch all of the action go down. And if you play 6v6, even if you don't, sign up now and see if you can compete against some of the best in North America.